Welcome back to this episode of Kingdom Kommerce, where we do commerce the kingdom way. I am one of your hosts, Cooper Peterson, joined by co-host Luke Reichbost and sponsors Scott Moffitt and Joe Abraham. How are we doing?
Doing well, boys.
Doing well.
Thank you.
Today we're excited to talk about something that Joe has created called BOSI, and he's done 2 TED Talks on this topic, and essentially it helps you discover who you are as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So why don't we just dive right into
it?
Yeah.
And I hope, guys, and all our listeners, we can have some fun with this episode because it's really about discovering how God's wired you, right? Mm-hmm. In a previous episode, Scott, I mentioned to you how in awe I am of you because you're able to take early stage entrepreneurs and put them systematically through a product launch and success. I was trying to do the same thing in around 2005 to 2008 window when I felt like I was beating my head against a wall. And that's when God gave me BOSI. I was scribbling notes one day, and in about 20 minutes, it just kind of popped up on a piece of paper.
In the exact acronym?
3 of them popped up, and the fourth one showed up the next day kind of thing. But yeah, exactly. I just kind of gave them names. So so the backstory is I was working with multiple entrepreneurs. One was an NFL athlete, one lady was a scientist, one was just a typical business owner. And I was advising all of them at the same time. And my thing was, okay, I figured out how to do a great marketing strategy with Entrepreneur 1. I'll just take that and give it to Entrepreneur 2 and Entrepreneur 3 and it'll all work. And it wasn't working because even though the functional mechanics of the marketing plan made sense, the entrepreneur themselves was, in one case would be like, absolutely, this is great. And in the other 2 cases, they were like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. This isn't me. It's not who I am. I just feel uncomfortable. Please help me. And so I was like, so all entrepreneurs aren't the same. That was the big aha for me. So that took the diving, digging. And so what we're going to do today is talk about what came out of initially 2 years of research and now 15 plus years of a couple 100,000 people now having gone through this assessment process and validated that, yeah, like just like our personality styles, when you get into entrepreneurship, we are all a little bit different. But we also bunch together in these groups. There's 4 groups primarily that we're going to talk about. And it's really important, especially for a first-time entrepreneur, to identify which one am I more like. None of us are like it. This is not about putting you in a box. This is saying, what am I more like? Because chances are, once you can identify that, it'll start to unpack for you a lot of answers from what type of business is or isn't a good fit for you, what role you should have in that business, what your gifting likely is, who you likely need as a co-founder to complement you. It just makes some of those decisions easier because you get to see how God designed you in the first place. And it's not me trying to be like Scott and Scott trying to be like Sue because Sue hit a home run and built a $100 million company. And now Scott's going to go study Sue's way and try and do everything Sue did. Well, if Scott's not like Sue and his decision making is different, it doesn't matter what she did. There's no best practice he can follow. Each of us are a little different. And you'll even see it in the Bible, right? Abraham wasn't like Moses and Moses wasn't like Paul. God wired them all differently. So they had different challenges, different strengths. So how do we take that design, discover it, and apply it? So that's what we're going to do.
That's exciting. I already have a question, but I know we're going to jump through it. Well, so with a lot of, there's a lot of different assessments out there that talk about what type of person you are. And I know that there's differences with this, but, with some of them, you can be like 2 and equally kind of 2. And some of them, I've seen results that there's not a lot of deviation between all 4. In your system, as you start to unpack it, if you could just talk through, the way it sounded as you described it right now for the listeners was, you're going to be one of these, predominantly.
Yeah, good. So yeah, all of us are going to hopefully find ourselves having a primary and a secondary. The primary will drive most of your decisions, and the secondary will kind of come in and pop in every once in a while. So we'll unpack that together. And the interesting thing about this is because it's not your personality, it's how you make decisions in business, we morph. So when he first started in entrepreneurship, he may have been one type, but after a lot of experience, he may have morphed into a different type, but he needs to know he's morphing because everything changes as he's morphing.
Do you think most people morph?
Most people at some point morph, yeah.
So
let me walk you through. Yeah.
So is this like, do you morph based on, I guess we can dive into this in a minute, but I'm thinking skill versus personality. Are those
Yeah, so
two
this is not
components?
personality.
Okay.
Because there's type A's in all 4 categories we're going to study. There's mellow, type C's in all of them. So knowing your personality is important, and then you kind of add this as a layer on top, because this is purely what drives you to make decisions and how you make decisions in business. What motivates the decisions you're going to make. Because if I can figure out what's going to motivate your decision making and what drives your decision making, I can better serve you in an advisory role, in a co-founder role, in an employee role, right? And you'll see how this unpacks. Should I give you kind of a first draft, first run at this?
Please.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more question
Yeah.
before you do. The decision, do you notice that, because you talked that there's alphas in each, and do you notice that certain personality types generally gravitate toward one or the other? Like, is there a synergy generally?
There's obviously like the classic type A, right, would gravitate to one of these. But again, as I give you examples of entrepreneurs you all know, or you start to picture yourselves and your peers and your friends, you'll see that there's type A's
No more
in all
questions.
of them.
Let's go.
Let's
Let's
have some
go,
fun.
yeah.
Right. So we'll bring up on your screen at some point a visual of this quadrant. There's 4 pieces to it. The builder, the opportunist, the specialist, and the innovator. That's where BOSI comes from. It's an acronym for those 4. The names were just picked. I just kind of picked them because they're somewhat descriptive of who these people are. Now, as a reminder, this is how we make decisions. It's what motivates our decisions, right? So let me start with, let me start with a group that in entrepreneurship, we kind of assume all entrepreneurs are. Let's start with the I. I stands for innovator. This is actually, believe it or not, only 20% of entrepreneurs show this predisposition, but you'll recognize these people in yourself, this behavior in yourself or others, because the innovator is typically someone who was kind of going about doing something they loved, making music, cooking stuff, designing things, whatever. They were just doing something they loved, and a business kind of popped up around it. An idea popped up around it because of their deep expertise in something or their knowledge or passion for something.
Personal necessity, or
it was more so like they were just tinkering. They were just making stuff. They were just doing their thing, and whammo, presto, this thing pops up. And it's like everyone's like, huh, how did you come up with that? How is that possible? That's different. It's unique. It's patentable. And this person is like, I don't know. I just doing what I loved. And I can do 50 more or 100 more. Like there's an unlimited pipeline of things they can create in that one lane, and the pipeline could never stop. It's just this creativity they have that others don't have, that allows them to just create and create and create and create and develop and design. And interesting about them, because they're wired that way, that's all they care about. So all their decisions get made through a lens called mission. They've come up with something. It's a game changer. It's going to change the world, in their opinion. And all their decisions get made through the lens of, I just want to help people. I just want to change the world. I just want this to revolutionize whatever. I don't care if I make money. I don't know anything about business. I could care less about business. Frankly, I think business is evil. But I just want to make this thing so many people can have it. And so when advisors get around and say, oh, wow, this is great. We could sell this thing for $1 million. They're like, no, I just want to give it away for free. Like I don't want to make money. I just want to give it away. It's that missional side of the entrepreneur. Now, there's a little bit of that in all of us as entrepreneurs, but there's some people who are just like, this is them. Yeah. So you look back to a Steve Jobs, you look at an Elon Musk. These are high innovator DNA profiles, and you'll see how their decisions are like, I don't care if I buy Twitter and lose 100 million, 200, I don't care. Because I'm on a mission to change something. I'm going to build rockets that fly in this space, and you guys think I'm crazy? I kind of don't care, because this invention, this creation is more important than business models and pricing, and I don't care if it scales. I got to go build it. It's the chef who's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to copy that restaurant's recipe. I'm just going to go to the farmhouse, grab a bunch of stuff, and I'll just make art every day on a plate. It's the artist or the fashion designer who's like, I just want to make stuff for people. I don't care. And I don't care about business, and I don't know business, and I don't want to know business. I just love making stuff. That's innovator DNA.
Do you find with that segment, because I feel like I talk to a lot of those people, and I always use the word innovator. I said you have the gift of an innovative mind. So they look at something, and I, by the way, this isn't me.
No, you're the opposite of this one.
This isn't me. There are people that look at something and they say, you know, that can be better, and this is how. And it almost can be, it can almost be a detriment from a business perspective. It is a detriment from a business perspective, if not managed effectively, because you can start to look at everything and see how everything can be different, and then put 10% of your effort into 10 different ideas or concepts, when in my experience, you really have to kind of pick one. You have to really go all in for that.
Yeah, and I think what you'll find as I unpack the other ones is the innovator has a lane. It's like a vein. They can't innovate in 10 different markets and 10 different industries. They just have their one thing. It's software.
Okay.
It's food. It's fashion. And in that lane, they just can't stop. You can't tell them to stop designing, because they need to be in the lab of the business, inventing, tinkering, creating more, or their joy is gone. And so what happens in a lot of them is they'll come up with their thing, then they get thrust into the front end of running the business, doing P&Ls, running QuickBooks, and they fall flat on their face. They hate every minute of it. They don't want to hire people. They don't want to fire people. They just want to create. And that's innovator DNA.
I was talking to a high schooler I met recently, and he had developed a video game in high school, has like 10,000 downloads, and he's like, I don't really want this to be my job. I just want to make games for people for free. Yeah. And I feel like that fits exactly
and
what
if you
you're
said,
about.
Bro, do you have other games in mind? He'd be like, yeah, I could build 50.
That's what he said, yeah.
He's got the DNA.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of gifts, obviously, and strengths to every one of these DNAs we're going to learn about. God's pre-wired you with this innovative, creative, problem-solving, idea generation capacity, but with each of these come weaknesses. And Scott would be first to point out the number one weakness of this group is going to be managing the business, running a business, figuring out how to get the product to market. They can make all the product you want, but they need someone in their life who's going to take that product and figure out how to scale it. I know a lot of brilliant innovations with lots of patents that are still sitting in garages and warehouses.
Spoiler alert, probably not the best for a solopreneur.
Well, a lot of innovators who should be market makers are still solopreneurs, because they've convinced themselves they have to run the business, they have to control the money, they have to and do the design and figure out how to hire a lawyer. They're out of their gifting.
Right.
Their gifting should be make more cool stuff. Let somebody else do all the rest. And that business God will actually bless. But when an innovator holds on to control of the business, they kill it almost every time.
What would you say is the opposite of that, and like what complements them both?
So,
can you dive into that for us?
So, you remember the BOSI quadrant, right? BOSI?
Yeah.
The I sits in one quadrant corner. Cross quadrant from that is what we call builder.
Okay.
So builder DNA, God's pre-wired this group to not give a rip about a product or how passionate the product is or how awesome it is or cool it is. All they care about is, how do I scale this thing? And God's pre-wired them to be able to scale anything. I could bring Scott a water bottle product, a phone product, a pen product, a coffee shop, and he can scale them all, because in his mind are the golden threads of how to scale something. He never sees a pen as a single pen. In his brain, one pen is 600,000 pens. It's, how do I get the unit model economics down? How do I get this set up right so I can sell 600,000 of them? So on one side, let's use an example of, it's the difference between someone who says, I love making pizza, I'm going to set up a pizza shop, and they have one little pizza shop in a strip mall in your town. And they make great pizza. Everyone loves it. They're the hometown pizza shop. And then there's Domino's, right? One was, I just want to make pizza. That's what we're going to learn about, is the specialist. The builder is like, one pizza shop. Yeah. My gosh, someone take a gun and blow my brains out. I'm not showing up there every day and figuring out dough. And no. 600, please. And how are we going to scale this thing? But see, God's pre-wired
Mail frozen ones, Lou Malnati.
Yeah. So, like, God's pre-wired some people, and data shows that it's only about 15% of all entrepreneurs who have this in them. Yet, so many of us feel like, I got to be that guy. I got to be that gal. I'm going to build scalable businesses, and I'll go study books, and I'll take courses, and I'll follow TED Talks and podcasts to learn how to scale businesses. No, God didn't wire you to do that. He wired some people to do it. He wired you to maybe do something else in business, because the decision making, so you know how in the innovator, it's all mission, change the world, kumbaya stuff, which is needed. The builder makes almost all their decisions through a lens I call infrastructure. How am I going to grow my infrastructure today? How many trucks do we have on the road? How much headcount do we have? How much payroll are we running? And how do we run more? How much of the world did we take over today? That's how they make decisions. So because of that, they're able to make decisions that some of us are petrified of. Like, of course we're going to hire 7 more people tomorrow. Of course we're going to take over that office space. Of course we're going to, and like the rest of us are like, we're having palpitations going, how can you make these decisions? I'm freaked out. They have it. Even in church world, you'll see there's someone who'll go off and start a church and have 100 people and have 100 people 20 years later. And then there's this guy who'll go and have like 20,000 people and build a mega church network and whatever, right? It's the
specialist would be the 100
the
people.
Specialist versus the builder.
So examples of builders that our listeners would know.
Politics aside, Trump's a great example of builder DNA. Here's another one. We already gave you as an example. You're showing some builder tendencies. So as I'm getting to know you better, here's why I think you're starting to show some builder tendencies. Because you started with gloves, right? And you're still working on gloves, but already there's a new idea. And it's not because you want to make money, it's because you're solving another problem you think you could scale, and you're like, the same principles I applied here in a product company, I can now apply in a service business, and the dots are connecting for you. That's not normal. That's not every entrepreneur. And you're like
abnormal, Cooper.
you're 12 months into running multiple startups potentially at the same time, and you're comfortable with it. It's not freaking you out. You kind of know what you're going to do. So you're showing some of the early stages of that builder DNA.
And how cool is it that God does that, right? Environmental science major, and now he's a builder.
Now, so you were asking the question about personality,
right?
And type A. Builder DNA and type A can go really hand in hand because of that. Builders tend to be like Pied Pipers. They just have a message that people want to follow. They tend to be fairly assertive. They tend to be like quite visionary. And it's not, we all have a little bit of visionary in us, but there's something about builders that we're like, oh, they're going to pull it off. Like, I don't know how, but I should probably jump on the bandwagon because they have a level of confidence in their ability that I might as well jump on board. So those are some of their strengths. They can scale almost anything.
Only my weaknesses.
They can build businesses. Your wife's nearby, so here comes validation of the weaknesses. My research on builders showed that if you look in their history, you'll see a wake of dead bodies. It's just the it's the collateral damage that comes with this DNA. Is they are truly like a Ferrari going 200 miles an hour all the time. And in their life, there's a bunch of people driving 40 miles an hour pulling up in front of them. And it's excruciating for them to be around 40 mile an hour Hondas when they are a 200 mile an hour Ferrari. And when not in check, they can let people know that pretty clearly. So this is the example of the boss in the conference room, right? They'll walk in, they'll have some things to say. Everybody in the conference room feels like they've just been murdered, right? They're all,
man.
And then the boss walks out and shows up 10 minutes later going, hey, everyone ready for lunch? Let's go grab some lunch. And people are still picking themselves up off the floor. Because to the builder, like, I came in, I did my motivational speech, I told you what we want to do, let's get it done. You did this terrible, let's fix it. Those people don't have the behavioral profile, or they don't understand builder behavior to go, this is actually better for us, it's moving us forward. They get all sad and mopey, and the builder's like, what's wrong? Like, I don't understand. Like, we're just building a business, aren't we? Isn't this normal? So there is a tendency for builders to have relational casualties, significant amount. And you'll never run into that with an innovator. With the innovator, everyone's loved and hugged and cared for and overpaid and all that stuff. Builders are like, I'll just get another one. Ship them out, I'll get another one.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Can you do a quick overview again of the builder and the innovator for us?
Yeah, so recap. They sit opposite from each other. With the innovator, think product development, product design, research and development, innovation, all the great ideas, all the life-changing things with some kumbaya, love people, culture. I just want to love on my people, love on my customers. And if they don't like my product, that's okay. I don't care if I make money. I'm just here to change the world. Builder is business is about growth. Business is about compounded annual growth. It's about revenue generation. It's about expansion. It's about infrastructure. And I don't care if we're selling water bottles or candy or widgets. Let's just go sell a ton of it and make a bunch of revenue and grow it. Because if not, why are we even here? What a waste of time.
One follow-up to that, since we're talking about the builder. So the motivation, though, behind that builder, I definitely understand why you put me in that category. The motivational factors that drive that, I think, can be vastly different too, though, because I think as you're talking through it, it can sounds a bit harsh. I'm not offended, but it sounds a bit harsh in ways. But it's ultimately because I feel that God's gifted me in ways that I know how to do those things, and I know what the purpose of doing them is. But you're right. I mean, I have in my career had to realize that not everybody is wired the same.
So I'm glad you're bringing that up. And in part two, maybe after our break, we'll kind of look at the spiritual side of this. In that, I'm giving you examples of just what we're finding in our general research, right? So someone who's not walking with the Lord, their motivation as a builder could be just control, power, ego, me, winning, money, right? But God can use builder DNA in a Christ follower very differently in this controlled, submitted, yet super powerful for his kingdom version. But you, as a Christ follower builder, should and could look dramatically different than a Trump or whoever else you want to pick, right? Because you are submitted to the Lord in all this wonderful firepower you have. Same thing with the innovator. You have this wonderful gifting. If it's submitted to the Lord, it's going to go one way. If it's not, it's going to go a completely different way.
Awesome. I just love it so much, and I can't wait for in a moment we go ahead and talk about the opportunist and the specialist. But with that said, we're going to jump off to a quick break, and we'll be right back. Thank you so much for listening so far.
Welcome back to Kingdom Kommerce. We're in the middle of talking about BOSI. We just uncovered innovator and builder, and now Joe's going to give us the opportunist
and the specialist.
Yeah,
so just to remind you on the data, the builder and the innovator make up only together about 35% of all business owners in their primary thinking, right? So that means the bulk of it is these other two. So I'm not going to go into like a super detail, only because people can always link to the TEDx talk and hear it there. But let's just do a quick flyover, because I want to spend some time with you guys with your Q&A.
We'll have that included in the description, by the way.
Perfect. So, opportunist. We'll have some fun with this one because ODNA, opportunist DNA, is kind of gifted by God into certain entrepreneurial minds to be this, I want to make money. I want to make money fast. I would almost say like this, the get-rich-quick side of some of us, that every money-making opportunity gets us excited. Now, there's a little bit of opportunist in every entrepreneur. Otherwise, you wouldn't be an entrepreneur in the first place, right? But there's some people who are like off the charts. Like this is what drives most of their decisions. It's how can I make as much money possible, as fast as possible, ride some wave of growth, and then cash out just at the top, and then have the ability to sit on a beach and sip a Mai Tai and never have to work again. You'll see this a lot in professional salespeople who are like incentive commission driven. Just give me something to sell. If I can get excited about this water bottle and I can make a commission of X, I'll go out and shake hands and kiss babies, and I'll do whatever you need me to do so I can make money, because I want to make money. I have dreams. I have goals. I want to buy stuff. I want to have stuff. And that drives a lot of the behavior and the decision making is fast. I want it
a lot
fast.
of the fads, I would assume. Like, you know, some people would disagree with this, like Bitcoin, NFT.
Hey, listen, you're spot on. The part of every one of us that gets excited about a stock tip or a Bitcoin thing, like, my gosh, wait, I could buy it for X, and in 3 days it could be worth Y, and or, you know, I could flip something real fast. So if you think of entrepreneurs who are drawn to flipping homes in certain in windows of time, or who are drawn to network marketing, multi-level marketing, because there's the promise of you work hard for a short window of time, you could make a pile of cash, and then have residual retirement income for the rest of your life. It's appealing, and that's what drives a lot of the decision, is financial freedom. So unlike infrastructure that drives your decision making,
brick after brick after
or
brick.
changing the world that drives the innovator, financial independence is what drives the opportunist behavior. I just want to be done. I don't want to work for anyone. I don't want to have to answer to anyone. I just want to be financially free so that I can actually do what I really love. Build churches, give money away, whatever it may be. But when opportunist DNA is secondary or even primary in us, there's a tendency to, like, every idea is a good idea. I don't want to say no. There's fear of loss every time a money-making idea comes by. So it's like, what if I miss it? And what if Luke goes and makes the money on it, right? Maybe I should jump in too, kind of thing. That's the opportunist in us. And they make up a good 25, 30% of business owners, entrepreneurs, even people in intrapreneurship. It's heavily incentivized driven. Put me in the front of the room. I want to see my name in lights. I don't care what the idea is. If it makes money, let's do it. Good example for you guys on that one. Richard Branson, who built the Virgin brand. His first book was called Screw It, Let's Do It.
Yeah.
Right. That's the mindset of the opportunist, which is, there's no bad idea. If it makes money, let's just go do it. So that's why there's a record label that was started, and then a cruise line, and then hotels, and then airplanes. Let's just do it.
My favorite quote from him is, if someone ever asks you if you know how to do something and you don't, just say you do and figure it out. You know,
that's opportunist mindset.
So they don't need to necessarily, just a quick question on it, they don't need to necessarily believe in the product, and so they'll
say that because if they're going to sell it, they have to believe it. Yeah, but
they could almost like convince themselves that they believe in it, because their drive to succeed kind of can convolute the reality of what.
If I offer you enough money, you will override any belief system you have, because you'll go do it, because the opportunist in you is like, this may be a little on the borderline, but wait, I can make 100% in 6 minutes? Okay, I'll do it. That's opportunist behavior. So there's a little bit of that in all of us, but all of you will have friends, peers, and every business needs opportunists in it, because otherwise we could make all the product we want and no one's going to go out and sell it, or we could have all the infrastructure dreams we want and no one's out there pounding the streets, taking the insults, hearing the no's, saying, I don't care. I can get 50 no's. I'm just looking for the first yes. That's only an opportunist mind is willing to take all that rejection to get the yes, because there's that incentive, there's the win, there's the carrot at the end of the
tunnel vision a little bit.
Yeah. That's why great salespeople, big revenue generators, have high opportunist DNA. And you're like, I can't believe they can pitch like that and sell like that and have the door slammed in their face like that. And they just seem to be able to talk and sell, and they love it.
Nose bounce right off them. Like, it's almost robotic. It doesn't even matter.
That's opportunist DNA. So strengths are the ability to generate revenue, the ability to corral people, the ability to get people excited, the ability to sell. Weaknesses tend to be focus. It's really hard when you're high opportunist DNA to focus on any one thing, because there's shiny objects everywhere. Oh, what about this? What about that? Oh, this is more exciting than that. I thought I was excited about this startup, but now I've got 6 new ideas of startups, and I'm going to go chase those.
Like professional ADHD.
And, you know, in our previous episode when we were talking about the checklist, how do I know an idea is viable, TAM, and they're like, can I just bypass all that, because I just want to get to selling stuff and making money tomorrow. And they're the people who drive you nuts, because they come to you with idea after idea after idea, and what you're like, dude, the first idea is half-baked. You got to go do a bunch of homework first and you already talked to me about your next idea.
Right.
Right. I had a chance to work with one of the funnest people I ever got to work with. He's Omar in my book, but he's actually one of the greatest NFL athletes of all time. I just called him Omar in the book, but I had a chance to work with him. What's that?
Because he was an O.
He was an off the charts O, and because he had money, he'd heard about me. I got introduced to him to help him start a couple of businesses, kind of side hustles while he was playing, and literally, he'd have an idea for a business. We're gonna go into motorsports. We launched a NASCAR team because his name was going to be on it, and all the sponsors wanted to be in. But okay, we were like 6 months in. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of prep. 6 months into it. He's like, "Hey guys, John Elway and I are going to start a series of car dealerships in the Denver area." We haven't even got the car on the track, and you're talking about we're going to make $100 million in the car dealership business. And as soon as him and Elway had the conversation about maybe car dealerships together, this other idea, gone, not as relevant, don't care.
Wow.
And that behavior, I was trying to figure out, how can you hop from idea to idea to idea and be so comfortable with it? It's the behavioral profile that allows you to do it. Now, in some cases, that's a real blessing, because some people, as you know, choke their businesses to death, and it's a not viable business, and they're holding on. So a little bit of opportunist is a good thing to move on to the next thing.
Right.
But when your opportunist DNA is high, it can be an issue because you never see anything through.
Wow.
And very interesting.
But we need them.
Yeah.
You need them in your business because that's how it grows.
What would you consider yourself?
I started off, when I was my first time entrepreneur, I was like opportunist galore. I could care less what business I was starting in college. I just wanted to make money. That was my motivation.
Same.
And someone could have brought me, I don't know, waters, widgets, whatever. I would have been like, if I can make money, I'm in. And then I displayed a lot of the strengths and the talents of opportunist DNA. All the weaknesses were there too. And then, but the Lord uses that. That's the powerful thing. He, like you said, he allows certain things in your life. He lets you go. He lets you kind of do your thing.
Stumble at times.
And he's like, oh, okay, so you think that's the way we're going to do this? Okay. And then Satan shows up because he's been studying you since the day you were born. So he knows what traps to set for you. So whatever that may be, in the case of builder, it can be pride. In the case of opportunity, it could be ego. And like, look at what I sold. Look at what I did. Look at my name and lights. And then God's like, okay, time to hit the big red button and bring you back.
Get your bloodbath in.
Get the bloodbath in.
Is it better to have different aspects and be well balanced in all four quadrants, or is it better to be really good at one?
I don't think you and I have a choice as far as how can I create. It's like we are what we are. God's given you one of these imprints of, let's say, strong builder opportunist or specialist opportunist or innovator builder, right? He's given that to you. It's how do you recognize that and then get into the strengths of that and then complement yourself with the others who are really good at the other stuff, as opposed to saying, how do I become more builder-like? Or how do I become less opportunistic? No, it's almost like, how do I leverage the fact that I'm a little bit more opportunistic? How do I leverage that for the glory of God in my business? That's kind of what the magic would be.
So you talked about early in your career, and I know we have one more of the quadrants to go through, but you talked about early in your career, you were, the opportunist. And so do you think that it was a natural, a God shift? And this is kind of in line with Cooper's question, or was there an intentionality once you really started to understand that you tried to kind of...
No, it wasn't even a try. It was literally life circumstance, or kind of what the next chapter that God puts in your life, if you see it that way, is I would have been just fine an opportunist all my life, and I would have figured out, God willing, and adapted and all that kind of stuff. But I was doing my thing, but then after startup number 1 and 2 and 3, some of the builder capabilities and skill sets and talents started to develop, right? So I started to shift a little bit, became less opportunistic and a little bit more, hey, what systems are we putting in place? How do we scale this thing? And those became more interesting to me. But I never developed primary builder. It just started to go from a very, very small piece of me to maybe a little bit more. But then when I discovered BOSI, that, I told you guys one day, scribbling on paper, 20 minutes later, I morphed like this into an eye. because suddenly it became, I'm going to change like God's giving me this. I'm going to change the world. I don't care. Let's just give it away for free. And like I was doing all kinds of stupid stuff, giving away 20, 30 hours of my week at accelerators and incubators in Chicago. And like, I'm all this kumbaya la-di-da guy who literally days ago or months ago was like, make money, build business, scale, grow. I could care less because the innovator had activated. God had given this creativity, and like I could sit there and write about this for hours and talk about this for hours and build products around this. It was like effortless, and it didn't feel like work because for a moment the I had been activated. That's why I say we can morph, and God just can turn it on and turn it off. But if I hadn't recognized that I was activating in me, I would have literally thought I was insane, because I was like, I'm not charging for my time. Yeah. I should. People are like, Joe, like, I'll pay you to consult for me. I'm like, no. I just want to help. It's like, but that wasn't me 6 months ago, because the innovator had kicked in. And now, in the business I'm involved in now, my business partner is a high I. He's just this amazing, smart, visionary innovator in the industry we're involved in. And it's interesting. I've shifted, and I'm using a little bit more of my builder and a little bit of specialist skills, because I'm here to complement him, right? We both can't be eyes in the same business. So I'm doing a little bit of innovation, but I have to say, okay, how do I serve my partner better? Do we both need to be sitting in the back room, inventing, creating, conjuring stuff up? Or how do I use other skills that God's given me? So I run more the back office of our business. I'm more like the managing operating partner, so that he can be the inventor, tinkerer, mad scientist guy. And by God's grace, I'd picked up a few of those skills. Even though builder is not my natural tendency in our business, staff would think, oh, Joe's kind of our builder. But that's not naturally me, but I've just enough of it to use in our business.
So you're tweaking, so based on circumstances and where you are in that.
Yeah, world. And I believe over the next few years, if we keep this business and don't sell it, God will allow more of my builder specialist side to show up more and more and more. Like I'm the guy saying no on spending. I'm the guy watching our budgets now. That's not normal for me. It's the opportunist. I was like, screw it, let's do it. Yeah. But God's kind of building that back into me, because that's the best service to the business and my partner, versus light our hair on fire and jump off the cliff.
Could you describe the specialist side of you? And
the specialist is, this is an easy one, but by the way, this is 40+% of all entrepreneurs and business owners. This is the part, this goes back to something that'll be the aha for you, is well over 50% of people who go into entrepreneurship don't go into entrepreneurship to get rich. They don't go in it to change the world, and they don't go in to scale and become the next Microsoft. They just have an expertise. They have something they do well, and they're going to bring that to market. This is the lawyer, the doctor, the construction worker, the plumber, the service provider, the nurse, any one of those where you've gone through years of schooling or apprenticeship or on-the-job training, you've developed something. I can write software code, I can fix computers, I can install infrastructure, and they just want to make money doing that. And they could all do it in a job. Someone would hire them and pay them well to do that for them, but they just feel this entrepreneurial pull to go do their own thing, set up their own shop, and they're perfectly satisfied in their, quote, one-man operation or their small business with 5, 10 employees, providing a good service to their end user. So service and client satisfaction is what drives most of their decision-making, is how do I just make sure my small customer base is taken care of. Scott, don't talk to me about 15 more locations and making billions of dollars. We're fine. I get paid a salary, my staff gets paid a salary, the rent is paid, and there's some money left at the end of the month or year. I'm good.
See, it's like blowing, my mind doesn't, as you're even saying it, I'm like, how? So you say satisfied, right? And I think there's a difference between satisfied and, what's the word I'm looking for?
I'll give you
thriving.
I'll give you
thriving.
I'll give you the
really, really happy. Are they doing it because they have that specialization, and that's what, like, what I wrote down as you were talking is identity. So do they actually associate their identity with that specialist in a lot of ways? Like I'm a plumber, so I'm going to start a plumbing business because of what I do.
Their
they might not like being a plumber, but
actually they don't mind being a plumber. But you bring up a great point. When a specialist goes into business, their identity, the company name and that brand and the service that's being provided is their identity, which is why they tend to say no one can do it better than me. That's why they struggle with hiring a lot of people and delegating and giving away control, because it's like, yeah, but what if they don't do it as well as me? That's going to reflect on my reputation. It's going to make us look bad. So I'd rather just have my handful of people who do the job well, and it's reputation, reputation, reputation. We're going to have a good reputation, and we're not going to do anything to tarnish it. That's what specialists think about. And the visual I would give you is a thermostat that hits 74. So God pre-wires specialists to have this thermostat that kicks in where they don't need to go to 80 or 90 or whatever. At 74, we're good. So in most small businesses, 300,000 a year, 400,000 a year, $1 million a year, even a couple million a year, you'll see them go like this and then plateau. And for years and years and decades be there at whatever that number is, 5 million, 400,000, 800,000. They're paying their bills. They've got a few key staff, and they're very, very happy. And they build a good business.
And probably have a very balanced life because they're not pushing to continue to grow. So they find the fulfillment that maybe a builder would find in growing their business, or the
their fulfillment is we have satisfied customers. We did your tax returns. You're happy. You'll come back to us next year. They don't like to sell. They're petrified of selling. They just want the referrals. If I do a good job, I'll get more referrals, and we'll be just fine. We don't need to advertise. Don't talk to me about social media marketing or posting on Twitter and Facebook. That just sounds fake. We'll just do a good job, and our customers will send us more customers.
That's a great example of an industry professional. And I know there's probably multiple in every industry, but a CPA. Like I can see a CPA being that
doctors, lawyers, accountants, graphic designers, IT people. There's I would say well over half of entrepreneurs, business owners, maybe even these. I don't even have a chance to get to know you, hear about your dad. But the way you described your dad is like...
He is so a specialist.
He's a specialist.
I mean, he has totally definitely some builder tendencies, and he's working on stuff a lot, and like some optimist tendencies looking back. But I so see the specialist in him.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. Strengths is they're like in the story of the tortoise and the hare, right? They're the tortoise. Slow and steady wins the race. We're not going to go crazy and take all the risks of the opportunist. We don't have the desires of the builder. We don't have all this innovation, new stuff we're creating like the innovator. We're just providing a good service. Slow and steady wins the race. So they're very methodical, good systems, good process. It's all about, hey, the cookie cutter. Everyone shows up and does their same job every day, and we're all good with it. Weaknesses, they tend to struggle with marketing, branding, standing out in a crowded marketplace. So every plumber looks like every plumber in town. They're all priced the same, and they're all buying the same ads on the same platforms because that's the safe thing to do. And they all join the Chamber of Commerce and exchange leads, right? That's specialist behavior, but it works for them. The thing they can struggle with spiritually is pride, because they've got a lot of letters behind their name, lots of certificates, lots of degrees, lots of, all that, and it's be like, that could get in the way sometimes. So I'll stop there. You've heard the BOSI. What questions come to mind at this stage at the individual level? In future episodes, we'll be able to use this to talk about co-founders and building teams and all that. But as you guys think about yourselves, or even people you know, anything you want to dive into real quick?
Guys?
Could you describe the morphing process a little bit more? So you're saying the tendencies to be a builder, opportunity specialist, those change through life circumstances and through your experiences. So it's something that you're not putting yourself into a box. You're not saying, I'm just a builder, I have to do this. So through the skills you learn, through the circumstances you're in, you can kind of adapt to show those tendencies based on your circumstance. Yeah,
and it all comes down to the situation you're in, right? You could end up today starting your own business and display certain traits, but 5 years from now you could end up as a co-founder and start to morph because your co-founder is definitely one of these, right? So if I was ever a co-founder with him, I'd be like, the last thing I need to do is show any builder tendencies. Even though I may have them, I've got to tune them down and tune them off, because otherwise we're going to start butting heads and we're going to start having issues and all that kind of stuff, right? So then I can say, okay, well, maybe I need to focus a little bit more on the IO side of the quadrant, the right side, because he can handle the left side, the specialist builder stuff. And so that's where you start to morph a little bit as circumstances call for it.
I also think that a lot of the innate, and correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, but I feel like our circumstances through childhood, how we grew up, can have a really big impact on what we are naturally. If you came from less advantageous circumstances, maybe you come from poverty, there's a desire of you start to make these
you're more
vows.
likely to end up upper quadrant builder opportunist.
Yes, because I don't want my life to be like this. I don't want my kids' life to be like this, right?
And even so, one of the things I had to do when we were developing the assessment originally was for entrepreneurs, but then we developed one for students. We developed one for startup co-founders, right? Different versions. When I was developing the student one, that was the struggle, is they haven't started a business yet, but are there any precursors or pre-tendencies a student could show that would help us identify the tendencies in them? Yeah, so if you took a lot of leadership roles, if you're a little bit more of that type who Pied Piper-like, you're probably leaning more towards builder tendencies. If you're a little bit more the front of the room, class clown, make everyone laugh person, draw attention to yourself, you're going to be a little bit more the opportunist potentially, And
if you come from
the more creative, introverted, I don't really want to talk to people, I don't want to draw attention to myself, you're likely going to show more innovator, specialist tendencies. Now, that's precursors potentially to what you could be. But then when the business idea comes and you launch in, any one of those four will start to manifest itself because you're now starting to make business decisions.
So just touching on it again, what would you say those would be for the specialist? Because you talked about it briefly for builder, opportunist, and the innovator. But
like the decision driver?
Yeah, for like the student aspect. Just real
for the
quick.
student, it's just the like, okay, yeah, like you just got good grades. Like you were studious, you were methodical. Teacher was like, man, this kid shows up, does their homework on time, turns everything in on time, and they're pretty much A/B student. And then there's the builders and opportunists who are like failing every class and like not showing up because they just can't even connect with what's being said from the front of the stage because their brain's like in another world. Specialists are like methodical. So if you're very methodical, very analytical, very detailed in school, you're more likely going to show specialist tendencies in your business. You'll overanalyze things. You'll be less risk averse. You'll be very risk averse when you get started.
Where's the best place that our audience could learn more about BOSI if they wanted to figure out more who they are and get some more information?
One of the fun things to do, and let's put this with our material, go take the assessment. It's free. Like, again, right? Crazy me. Back in the day, I was like, I don't want to charge people for this. So it's still free. You take the assessment. It's 10 questions, and it'll kind of tell you with a little report.
By the time you find it might be $9.99.
He's taking over the business. And then another fun thing to do would be watch a couple. You just Google a couple of the TED Talks.
We'll put the links
this will all sound familiar to you. And then if you really start getting into it, order the book on Amazon and read it, because there I get really into the meat of not just all the behavioral tendencies, but even recommendations based on your DNA of how to build your team, how to build your strategy. Blah,
and
blah,
we'll
blah.
get into more of how to build the team and partners
in some of our conversations.
Some of our coming
episodes.
Yeah.
With that said, we'll probably include some more stuff in our community platform. If you're looking to join our community platform, I encourage you to go to our website, sign up and join our mailing list, or go ahead and follow us on social medias.
The one closing thought, though, I do have is because this is Kingdom Kommerce, right? I could have done most of what we just talked about on any podcast. The part that people watching and listening to us who want to be Christ followers or who are Christ followers need to understand that the entrepreneurial imprint is from God. No matter which of these you are today or will be in 6 months or 6 years, God's using it very intentionally in your life, which means if you're different, Luke, from Cooper, that's God's design. Each of you have entrepreneurial DNA and each of you have spiritual gifts. And so if you take your spiritual gifting and lay it next to your entrepreneurial DNA and then take a little peek at your personality traits, that's God revealing to you who he's designed you to be. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. How do you use that now? How do you use your spiritual gifts, your entrepreneurial bent, and some of your personality quirks to build a business that blows the doors off your competition. That's the fun part of entrepreneurship, and it's very possible.
So you're going in with a loaded deck.
Yeah, you've got every advantage over everybody else, because anybody else could study BOSI and use it in some way, but a Christ follower can use it and say, oh my gosh, this is of the Lord, so how do I submit this to the Lord and use it and build team around it and bless others with my strengths and find people who complement my weaknesses and be more vulnerable in those areas. And God will use those in pretty amazing ways.
That's good.
So,
so good.
Before we go ahead and pull this out, guys, again, we're going to be talking more about what our personal BOSI tendencies are in the post-production content. That will be, again, our community platform. If, again, you haven't already, please go follow on social media and sign up for a mailing list on our website. But real quick, though, Cooper, what do you say you are?
Yeah, primary, secondary, just a hard guess.
Oh boy, I was having trouble because I found tendencies in each one.
Mm-hmm.
Very well rounded, Cooper.
I'll say builder. I'll say builder, partly because.
And what's probably your secondary? Are you more like specialist, detail oriented? Are you a little bit more like, hey, let's just go do this and have some fun and make money? Is it a little bit more of like product design, innovation, creativity?
I almost think innovator, because I want to see businesses succeed, and I've had fun like talking to friends.
Yes, you're more
and trying
mission
to,
driven on that.
Yeah, I want
So
to see
BI,
things grow.
you could
yeah.
be a pretty classic BI.
Now that's interesting, because I would say I am a OB all day.
Oh, that's beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
Because when someone can just kind of sense their sweet spot, then I could team you up with any innovator, specialist innovator in a startup, and you would blow the doors off the business, because they would create product, services, and it would be delivered well and work beautifully, and you would just go make it rain.
And like even then, like implementing systems, going and doing that from the opportunist point of view, I can do that. I can go and sell. I can go talk. I will push to get it done.
I'm absolutely BO.
Yeah, you are.
Absolutely BO.
And that's awesome. Now, here's the
I was joking about that before the episode, BO.
Yeah.
Here I am, BO.
BS, right? But you're better than being BS. Hey, but in closing, though, do you feel your business partner is also an OBBO, or is there some SBBS? Like, are they a little different in some aspect?
A little different.
Okay, because otherwise I'd be really worried for you guys.
Yeah, no, I think OS, more so an OS.
Okay.
In some, I don't know which is the primary versus secondary, but I can see more of an OS. And
that's good. That's healthy.
Yeah.
That's healthy. All right, gang.
We need an eye.
We need an eye.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. This was huge.
Close us out in prayer?
Yeah, absolutely. Lord, we thank you for Jesus Christ. In him we have salvation. We thank you for the opportunity to learn. Give us the heart to want to do entrepreneurship your way. In your son's name we pray, amen.
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 Thank you all for watching this episode of Kingdom Kommerce.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time.